Good evening, everyone. It is Scott and Sophia talking about conservative principles. What's going on, Miss Sophia?
Hi, everything's good. Gravy.
Gravy. It's
How
already
about you?
Wednesday. Oh, doing wonderful,
Yes.
man. It's Wednesday. It seems like we've been here before, right?
Yep. It's hump day.
It's hump day. That's right. And it's not raining, so it's a dry hump day.
Hell,
Even
it's
better, right?
we need some rain. I wish we would get some rain. I mean, this heat's been. I think we broke the record 2 days ago. It went up to 109.
Ooh, Texas is hot. Yeah, I'm in
Yep.
Florida, so you know how it is here. It's like every day is humid and hot, and oh goodness,
Yep.
yeah. But
That's that down south. That's that down south weather.
that's what it is. Good God, man. So tonight we're gonna be discovering a little bit more about our boy Thomas Sowell, and he's gonna be talking about woke culture. Now, a lot of people say like woke culture is like a term that came from conservatism or Republicans or something like that. I don't know. What do
Yeah.
you, what
That
is your
part.
take on what does woke culture mean to you?
Okay. So that term definitely has evolved. When we used to say woke, it was really talking about spiritual people. To be honest, like people who are spiritually, I guess, enlightened.
Hmm.
And then it evolved into something completely different that's unrecognizable. And now I feel like woke culture is basically this whole cancel culture, canceling anybody that goes against the mainstream CNN narrative,
Hmm.
and the third wave feminism. Like, I don't need no
Hmm.
man and all this kind of stuff. So that's, to me, from what I understand, that's what evolved into. That's the new woke culture.
Right, right. I remember people saying to stay woke a few years ago. I remember I was working around a lot of younger people in California, and they would be talking about like conspiracy theories about how what was really going on in the world. And they're like, yeah, you got to
Yeah,
stay woke out here because this, that, and the other thing. And it was almost like very conspiratorial in the language, and it could
yeah,
be talking about entertainment, like the entertainment industry, like
yeah,
how the
like the
Illuminati shit.
Illuminati. Yeah, that's true too. But also, like, it kind of goes hand in hand with spirit, with people who identify as spiritual.
Hmm.
They. So yeah, you're right though. It was more the conspiracy theorists.
Hmm. Yeah, that's how I remember it when it was first. But now it's kind of evolved, like you say. Woke is now about cancel culture. Like
Hmm.
it ties in a lot of issues like LGBTQ plus and
Yep.
the race relations. How we need to revise the economy and go into more socialism and even communism in many cases. And they're like,
Yep.
capitalism is evil. It's bad for black people. It's bad for minorities. It's only good for the upper hierarchy of white class or things like
Yep.
that. And so woke culture seems to really be all about grouping people, like
Yeah.
grouping the white male, the
Labeling people, grouping people. If you have conservative views, the new narrative is you're far right. Even down to being terrorists. I mean, during the pandemic, that's literally what they called conservatives. I'm like, what the hell? White supremacy. I mean, even if you're black and you have conservative viewpoints, suddenly you're a white supremacist. I'm like,
yeah,
what in the hell is going on? Shit, this
even
don't make
even
no
like
sense.
reparations um
Yeah,
gets talked about. I was talking to people about that, and they're like, we're trying to get our check, man. Why are you trying to stop the progress, man? We're trying to get our check, man. They owe us.
excuse me,
Don't
my bad.
matter how we use the money. It really don't matter how we use the money. It's our money. we can use that money any way we want. That's our money. You owe it to us. You owe it to us. And it's like, okay.
I don't know. I don't know, man. It's like, in a way, I mean, I kind of understand that we never got. Well, I can't even say we, because I mean, I was never a slave. You know, I mean, I do. I can say. I will say this. I definitely understand that slavery has impacted the Black community. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? That's just obvious, right? I can speak firsthand from my own experience with my own biological family members on my dad's side, who's Black, and we're from New Orleans.
Hmm.
And but that being said, you know, there was a lot of, I mean, they grew up in the most impoverished area that you can be in. And there was a lot of mental illness that was unchecked, unnoticed. Um, you know, just poverty and mental illness, crime, and all that, you know, runs through my family on my dad's side. And the effects of that are very obvious. And then as a result, you know, I experienced really harsh, horrible treatment from my family members because they're damaged like that. So
Mm.
what it is, it's kind of like a cycle
Hmm.
that needs to be broken, because like, see, my last name is Armand, and that's still the slave name from the French plantation that owned my family tree, right?
Hmm.
So my dad, he still had these ways of what the slave master would do to the slaves. You know, get on your knees, put your knees in rocks, beat you with a fan belt and shit like that. You know, whip
Hmm.
you across your back and all that kind of crazy ass shit. And so, you know, instead of saying, "Hold up, that's what was done to us, so I'm not gonna do it to my children," that never occurred to him. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So I
right.
feel like I do understand, because you know, I used to be on that train too. Oh well, that's what they were taught. You know, Black people were taught to hate each other, so they're gonna act like that because that's what you taught them. But I can't say that to you just because you're white. You didn't teach that to us. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's
Right.
kind
I
of what.
mean, it's kind of hard to nail it down because it's like not every black person in America has ancestors that were slaves. Number one, some people are immigrated to America much later after slavery was over. So how are they going to, or why should they benefit? Also, the same with white people in America. You know, like how are they supposed to account for it? It's not really fair. And then some people would take the idea, well, it's more symbolic. It's like it's just a symbolic way that the government can reach out and say, hey, we owe you, but does that mean that now we're not going to talk about it anymore? Like now it's paid for? Is slavery and that sort of long cruelty and injustice in history, is that really something you can even apologize for? Is that something you can even pay for out of your pocket, out of taxes? Like, I think it goes much deeper than that. And
Yeah,
there is a form of reparations I could agree to, like, which is just having um, people that are suffering from historical racism. Maybe it's something we can talk about as far as making it possible for impoverished minorities to have schooling or some way to better themselves and have that opportunity, and then give them that opportunity maybe. But the argument is that they're not going to want that. They're going to want their check, man. They don't want none of that. They want their money, man. They don't
right.
want no, we don't want you to tell us how to use our money. We want to use, if we blow our money on drugs or whatever, who gives a shit? Because that's our money. And it's
Yeah,
like,
but what's the point of that though? You
then
know,
what
I
is the
mean,
point? And where does it end? Like every society and every culture in the entire world has some sort of background of evilness. Like slavery didn't just happen to one group of people, it happened to
yeah,
a
I
lot of
mean,
people.
people have been conquering each other since the beginning of time, and it kind of irks me that
Yeah.
that the woke culture just focuses on that. I mean, you know, that's something I didn't even know either. Like a couple of years back, you know, because all you hear is slavery, slavery, slavery with black people, right? So I kind of got enlightened about that as well. I mean, the Irish were slaves, the
Mm-hmm.
Mexicans were indentured servitude. Is that what
Mm-hmm.
it's called?
Indentured
Indentured
servitude. Yeah.
service. Yeah, and I think the first people that actually enslaved Black Africans were Muslims, if I'm not wrong.
Well,
And
other
so,
Africans at first, because
and even now, there is still slavery in Africa where Africans are selling off their own. Like, so,
yeah,
why we're not talking about all of it? If we're going to talk about it, let's talk about all of it.
yeah, it's crazy, but yeah, we can get into it. Let's hear what Thomas Sowell has to say. I'm going to start the video and share it here, and we're going to get into uh, the origins of woke and what Thomas Sowell has to say. I think this interview came from back in the mid 90s, so this isn't really current, but it's still history. So let's check it
Right.
out. Yeah.
The vision of the anointed. Now that's an interesting title. Who are the anointed?
They're the elite in the media, in politics, all of those who think that third parties ought to be making people's decisions for them. The subtitle is Self-Congratulation as a Basis for Social Policy. In other words, people who think that everything is wrong with the country is due to the fact that other people are just not as smart as they are. And if only they could, or people like them could take over and make our decisions, we'd be so much better off.
But in early America, didn't this sort of educated class make the decisions for everybody?
As far as governmental decisions,
Yeah.
but the government itself didn't make the decisions for everyone.
Uh-huh.
Now, you can't decide where your kids are going to school. You can't decide whether or not they can move a halfway house for drug users next door to you or whatnot.
It's out of your control. The government decides.
That's right. The government decides too many things. They decide also how your children will be raised. You may have an idea about at what age children should be introduced to sex and in what manner, with what kind of moral commitment.
I mean, as a parent,
a parent, yes. The schools have taken that over. By the time you even think about it, they've already had years, of
they're passing out condoms to these kids.
Passing out condoms is not even half of it. They're showing motion pictures of naked couples engaging in sex, both homosexual and heterosexual, in the 7th grade. And if you complain about it, that's considered to be censorship.
You can't pull your kid out of school and say they don't have to put up with this stuff. I guess you could, but you'd be
well, if you have a private school to put it in, but you have compulsory attendance laws. And if you don't have the money for private school, then you're stuck.
Wow. Now that's kind of current today, huh?
Yep. And he spoke right out of my heart. Everything he said, like those are all things that I'm concerned about right now in 2022. So that especially the part about, if you can't afford a better school for your kids, the public schools that they have to go to are crap. You know what I mean? Like they just are. And it's what is it called? Zip code segregation. So that's going on right now. And what he was saying, like how the school dictates what your children should be exposed to, when they need to learn about sex. And that what he was saying is mild. Look at what's going on now. I mean, now we got transgenders in kindergarten reading stories to kids.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And a lot of people, like he mentioned, if you complain about it, then you're a bigot.
Yeah. Yep, you're a bigot. Well, I don't care. They can call me a bigot. I really don't care. Like, I don't care. Because it's the behavior of these transgender activists that makes people not like them. I mean, let's keep it real. And because why? Because they target children straight up. Like this, I was talking about this somewhere on Facebook, arguing with somebody, but it was about this parade in Texas, happened here in my state, in Dallas, and it was a gay pride, a transgender pride parade or something like that, and it was just, I mean, there was a electronic signal on the wall that said it's not gonna lick itself and shit like that. Like, why do these people feel that it's necessary to expose children to that type of shit? So I don't care who calls me a transphobe. I really don't care. I really don't.
Yeah. It's relevant today more than ever than it was back in those days. I remember. But anyways, let's keep it moving here.
Where did this country get off the track and decide that the federal government should make most of our decisions?
Well, it started to some extent in the New Deal, but I think the 1960s is sort of the golden age, if you want to put it that way, of this whole mindset. And that's what the book's about. It's about a mindset. It's not about a series of policies, but of showing how in policy after policy, those who think a certain way will try to take over other people's decisions.
How do you characterize the liberal philosophy today from the conservative philosophy?
Oh, that's a tough one. I guess the main thing about the liberals, again, is that they think a program will do it. If there's something that they don't like in the society, you have to set up a program and that will solve the problem. I think one of the things one of the words they use a lot is solutions. And I argue here and elsewhere that there are no solutions. There are just trade-offs. So, for example, when Ralph Nader launched his attack against the Corvair many years ago, he said it's an unsafe car and it has these safety problems and those safety problems. And in some respects, he was correct, not all. But the fact is, there were other things that a Corvair would do that made it safer than other cars. And on net balance, it was as safe as the rest of them.
Are you saying there are no solutions to our problems as Americans?
There are no solutions to anybody's problems. There are trade-offs. Safety is a classic example. Every year, so many hundreds of thousands of people are vaccinated against measles, smallpox, those kinds of things. Now, this saves several hundred lives, it's estimated. It also causes brain damage to about 30 kids a year. Now, there are no solutions in that. There are just trade-offs.
What about crime? Take crime as
Man, I like that. There's just trade-offs. There's no real solutions, because you hear that all the time, that with this government program, we're going to solve poverty, or we're going to solve inequities in society in some area or whatnot. And it's like, it never does. These programs just continue to expand and expand over the years, because they're like, instead of getting rid of the program, we need to reform it. We need to make it better. Well, they've been talking about that for years, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can make things better, but you're not ever it's not gonna be perfect, So I think that's also what he was saying. There's always gonna be some casualties and some, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not gonna be perfect just because you implemented some program.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's really interesting to me. But here we go.
It's an issue. Can we solve the crime issue, or fundamentally solve it so it's reduced?
Well, then that's a trade-off. You don't solve it. There will always be crime. There always has been. But you want to keep it down to some level. It's not this astronomical thing we have today. For example, the liberals right now are saying, crime has eased off in New York, and that's true. There were 6 times as much crime in New York a few years ago as there was in 1960. Now it's down to 5 times as much crime as there was in 1960. Now that's not what I regard as a great trend, unless it continues a lot more.
The liberals think we need more education and we need to help people in the inner city more to cut down crime there. Conservatives would say we have to be tougher on crime. Is either of them correct?
Oh, I no. You see, the conservative view is really not a solution. It's a trade-off. It says, yes, it would be wonderful if we could do all these things to prevent crime in the first place. We just don't happen to be that smart. And so what we do, we put people behind bars who commit violent crime. Now, a few years ago in East Palo Alto, which is not far from Stanford University, minority community, low income, they had the doubtful distinction of being the murder capital of the United States in proportion to their population. The next year, murder and all sorts of other violent crimes dropped tremendous amount, 30, 40, 50% in 1 year. Now, that wasn't because they discovered the root causes of crime or because they worked out everything was wonderful. They launched a campaign that put a lot of the bad guys behind bars. And when they were behind bars, they didn't commit as many crimes.
Makes sense to me.
And the thing is, even in a high crime area, the great majority of the people are not criminals. And
yeah, you get rid of those bad eggs, that's what's going to happen,
Crime rate's going to go down. I mean, that's just logical.
Yeah, that's just what it is, It's funny.
So if you can just put your hands on those people who are raising all the hell in the community and take them out of circulation, the crime rate drops.
People say there's undue emphasis on African Americans for committing crimes. Is that true? Ed Koch wrote in a column here that the population is 25% African American in New York. 62% of the crimes are committed by African Americans. Is that
I haven't checked these figures, but yeah, throughout the world, this is not unusual. Throughout the world, people are disproportionately represented in all kinds of different things. And it's true, obviously, in basketball. It's true in all kinds of other things. The main thing is not to keep people out of jail because they're one race or another, because when you do that, the people who are going to suffer the most will be the black community.
Where are you on affirmative action?
Again.
Why?
Well, you can only do one of two things. You can either just judge people individually, or you can judge them by groups. This whole notion that you're going to come out with a compromise, I would defy anybody to come out with a compromise on that. You're going to do one of those two things. Now, you can pretend to be doing other things, but that's all you're going to do. Those are the only two choices you really have at the end.
So we had a little technical issue, but yeah, interesting that, you know, it isn't about skin color. It's about some group being disproportionate for something or other. And you want to look at why that's the case. And there's, you know, we went in through the subculture that people in the inner city are engaged in. We did a show on that, a reaction to Thomas Sowell, again, who talked about where Black people in America inherited their culture that you might find in the ghettos and inner city. It's not from Africa or the islands like West Indies or anything like that, but the subculture comes from something else. Comes from cracker culture. Hey.
Man, I'm mad.
What happened?
My son downloaded a VPN that has an automatic kill switch.
Oh.
I was about to get my real switch for his ass.
I know that's right.
Made me light a whole damn cigarette. Damn.
Yeah, I just paused the video and just kind of.
I apologize.
No problem. It happens. But yeah, it was just talking about you know, some groups always disproportionately represent something like crime or sports or some other thing. And the idea isn't to just make sure that people of a certain race don't go to jail. Because like in the case of African-American community in the inner cities, if you do that, the people who are going to suffer the most are African-Americans in the inner city, because they're the ones who are getting murdered. They're the ones that are getting shot in drive-by shootings just by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, like I was thinking about even that they called it a mass shooting a couple weeks ago in Chicago. And it really wasn't a mass shooting. I guess you can make the argument it was, but it was basically two rival, I guess, gang members or two guys that were shooting at each other in public, and a whole bunch of people got shot and killed in that altercation.
Yeah, and that's how little kids get shot too, a lot of times.
Exactly. And so by letting these people just run free in the street isn't helping anybody, you know.
Right, but the big problem in those parts, because I used to live in Chicago and I've witnessed a lot of things and it's not because I was involved in gangs. I mean, in Chicago, you literally can be at the wrong place at the wrong time at any given time. So, you know, 1 minute you're going to the gas station and the next minute you come out and there's a dead body. I mean, it just happens that way. So, but what happens is a lot of people will not, you know, I don't know. It's almost like they're desensitized to it over there, at least, because, you know, there is not much commotion around it. People just go about their business. And, you know, me being there and never having seen things like that, I'm like, oh, my God, freaking out. And they're like, shut up. Just keep walking, you know, don't say shit. You know, like, if you want to be alive, just act like you didn't see shit. You know, that's how it is. So everybody.
Don't they have the strictest gun laws in Chicago?
Yeah. But that's not helping, apparently. They have the worst type of crime that you can imagine. Like, everybody has a damn gun over there. And I mean, it's not about that they have guns, but they have illegal guns. Right. So that's not gonna stop them from getting guns.
And more people die from those handguns and violent altercations like that than do in school shootings and things like that, where they want to ban guns because of the school shooting. some people do. I don't think many.
I just don't understand what one thing has to do with another.
Right.
It's to me, there's like no correlation whatsoever.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing, is that the only correlation can be drawn is how serious you are about gun violence. Like people are, especially people on the far left, get hyper reactive about the school shooting. You see the news feed of kids getting shot, and it touches their heart, and they feel sorry, and they're like, that's it. We've got to do something. We've got to get serious now and ban these guns. And because these people are dying from these high powered weapons. But most of the people who die from guns are suicides, number one. And if there is any other, murder that you can attribute to guns, would be handguns in the inner city. That's where so if you're serious about cutting down on those things, then ban handguns. But of course, they won't go there because they know that's unrealistic, and it's not fair, because most people that own guns are responsible, because they try to make it not about handguns and low powered guns, so to speak. It's about these automatic weapons, which an AR-15 is not an automatic weapon anyways, but you know what I mean? They try to make these semi-automatic weapons unable to get your hands on them because they're the ones causing all the damage. That's just not true.
Yeah, because like this last case, the 4th of July shooting that happened in Illinois. This guy should have been charged with a felony, because prior to that incident, he threatened to kill everybody in the house and all that type of shit. And they confiscated a whole bunch of knives off of him. And I'm like, the police said, well, we didn't have probable cause to charge him. I'm like, why not? I mean, the motherfucker threatened to kill everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
Like, why wasn't he charged? So if he had been properly dealt with by law enforcement and properly charged, then he wouldn't have been able to just go walk in there and purchase guns legally. So that's one thing we can try to make better. Like, if you have a felony, you're not supposed to be buying guns, at least not legally. And then maybe that can help. I mean, I don't know, but that dude, a lot of times these shooters, they don't just pop up. Like, there's definitely signs that they could be capable of that kind of stuff, because even when the students and stuff that knew him were interviewed afterwards, not students, people that he went to school with prior to all of that, they weren't even surprised. They said that they used to make jokes about him and say, yeah, that's your future school shooter and shit like that. So maybe it's more of a problem of mental illness that's undetected or not dealt with, once again, overlooked and bypassed.
That's true. It's a lot to it. I mean, it's definitely pointing in that direction as far as I'm concerned. Mental illness. I mean,
yeah, mental illness.
It's the people, in other words, it's the people themselves that have to be looked at. The accountability part.
It's not the gun; it's the person that's holding the gun that we need to look at.
That's right. Absolutely.
Again, the people who are the anointed think of this as a symbolic issue, and they want to be on the side of the angels. They don't ask, what are the consequences? Now, I've studied affirmative action programs around the world. One of the consequences is that those people who are more fortunate in the group that has the preferences, those people take the lion's share of the preferences. Very often, those at the other end of the scale, poorer people, actually fall further behind. That's true of blacks here. It's true of Malays in Malaysia. It's true of various groups in India. And there are reasons for that. You can say you must have a certain proportion. Nothing is easier than for an employer who might otherwise locate, let's say, in the Bronx, to locate out in Provo, Utah, where he will be not near any black people, and therefore he will never have lawsuits, and the jobs will be in Provo, and people will wonder, why don't people, here have more jobs? It never seems to occur to liberals that other people are not blocks of wood, that when you set up certain incentives, they will react to them in certain ways. And when they do that, the result may be the opposite of what you set out to do.
How do the anointed refer to people they don't agree with?
all sorts of ways. But I think the main thing is they believe that you're not merely in error, but in sin. In other words, they can't believe that you're just mistaken. You must have sold out. You must be something warped about you.
You guys are for the rich. You guys only care about the rich guys. Answer that. How do you respond? Liberal says conservatives only care about rich people.
Well, one of the things I go into in the book is that the whole notion of rich is ridiculous. That most Americans don't stay in the same income bracket, even for 1 decade. So the same guy who is, quote, rich now was 20 years ago probably in the bottom 20%. I mean, I was on a cruise recently, a luxury cruise, and the guy said, if somebody had told me when I was growing up that I would end up on a cruise like this, I would have said, get real, man. That very few people are in that same income bracket the whole time. The genuinely rich and the genuinely poor, I would estimate to be no more than 3% of the American people.
Really?
Put together.
Really?
Yes.
Genuinely poor. Now, I'm seeing numbers like when they were talking about healthcare, they said, 30 million people couldn't afford it or something?
Several million of those were making more than $50,000 a year. So it's not. See, this is one of the things that you know what they do. They never believe that people make choices. There are people who have the money. They prefer to put that money into a BMW rather than
a lot of young people didn't want health care. They were betting on their health.
Absolutely. And this allows them to buy more stuff that they want to buy. So it's not a question they couldn't afford it. It's a question they don't choose to spend the money.
What about mean-spirited? Conservatives are mean-spirited. They're bigots. They don't like people.
Well, one of the things I tell people say, you're a very tough person. I'm not tough. Life is tough. I'm merely trying to acquaint you with those facts.
I like that. I'm not tough. Life is tough. I'm just trying to acquaint you with the facts.
Yeah, I mean that's real. Like you said, keep it real. And I wanted to say, see that part right there, what he said about the anointed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes this newly evolved leftism. I guess it's always kind of been like that, but it's like really ridiculous now. But it's like a religion. Let's face it. It's like a cult almost, because if you don't agree, you get ostracized. They call you a name, all these names, bigots, homophobe, transphobe, whatever. It's crazy. Like the emotional blackmail, all that stuff. That makes it like a religion. And aren't they the main ones who hate religion? Like this shit is.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, they definitely have a tribalistic sort of nature about them. It's like you're not talking the talk. It's really groupthink all over again. And
it's almost like mass psychosis or something.
Yeah, and they only like the facts that coordinate with their beliefs. They don't like the facts that go against it. And if you bring it up, well, you're just trying to be a bigot. You're just trying to hide behind the facts. And really the bottom line. See, I think what it is people take up these worldviews because of some moral crusade they have. Like, I want to be virtuous. So I want to be on the side of the angels, which means I want to be on the side of the oppressed and the poor. And I want to be like, like some Jesus character,
Okay, well, let's talk about the oppressed and the poor. So let's talk about the medication that's given to children, which they call puberty blockers.
Mm-hmm.
But from my understanding, that is the same stuff that you give to pedophiles to chemically castrate them. Let's talk about, I want to be on the side of the oppressed. Aren't children like helpless?
Mm-hmm.
Why do we think it's okay to chemically castrate children and say it's for their betterment? And then they basically, put the parents in a bad position because they say, well, if you don't do this, then your child is most likely going to commit suicide. So now the parent goes along with it thinking they're trying to save their child. Like, to me, that's like downright manipulation, and the child is not protected in that whole entire scenario. So that's what I would like to know. Like, I wish somebody would call in because I want to know, like, what's the answer to that?
Yeah. Well, they definitely seem like they have all the answers, the way that they passionately and vitriolically label you as a bigot and all of that stuff, homophobe, this and that. Yeah, it's just amazing, you know. And we live, and I swear, I think that the downside of the internet has exasperated that situation. So now there's so many echo chambers and so much peer pressure to fall into these type of groupthink groups, you know, all on Facebook, you know, Twitter, you name it. And so, yeah,
I know that for a fact. Like even people that are in the trans community who detransition, you know, there's like I heard on Blair White, one of Blair White's videos. I think there's like now 26,000 detransitioners, and you know they're ostracized by the trans community and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, it's like if you don't follow their script, you're evil, you're bad, you're this, you're that, and that's cult behavior. Let's face it, that is not.
And the people that are pushing the agenda are not even trans people themselves. You know, they're just people that have monopolized and hijacked that group, just like BLM. Like BLM is mainly people that are, you know, white and upper class and have millions of dollars. Like the founder of BLM, she's not oppressed. She lives in a mansion and she's a Marxist and all of this kind of stuff. It's like she just hijacked that.
Self-proclaimed Marxist. And a lot of times, you know, a lot of liberals tried to recruit me when I wasn't really that political. You know, I'm still learning, you know, I'm not very that politically savvy, you know what I mean? So I try.
Well, that's why we want people to call in and bring some perspective. And by the way, if you like our content, please like, subscribe, click on that notification bell, because we're going to always have these kind of conversations on Wednesdays, once a week. And we want to hear from you. We want to see what you've got to say. Are we incorrect? What seems to be the problem here? If you're not, if you think that these are outdated sort of ideas, tell us why. Tell us why that makes sense. We'd love to hear from you. But yeah.
Yep.
60s, Lyndon Johnson announced a war on poverty. Am I wrong? But there are more poor people. I mean, in other words,
today than there were then.
Yeah, there are more poor people. Yes. I mean, this was a hell of a war. We lost it apparently because for the last 30 years we've been dumping money into these poverty programs.
Oh, absolutely.
Where's the money go?
Oh, it supports a whole industry of people who run those programs, who talk about those programs, research those programs, bureaucrats, and so on.
Doesn't help poor people.
No. The tragedy, you see, is that the anointed really want to make symbolic statements. And running these programs makes those symbolic statements. They don't really care if in the wake of affirmative action, for example, companies start locating away from minority communities so they don't even get involved in legal action. They don't care about that. They've made their statement on the side of the angels, and that's what's important.
Have you ever debated Jesse Jackson?
No, I haven't.
Is that because, would you like to, or would he not want to do that?
I have no idea.
You'd be willing to, I assume.
Oh, maybe. I don't know.
I think that's too much showbiz.
It is. You know, there are people who go out and do this, and I'm doing less and less of it. And I tell them the story of an African boxing champion who fought an Irishman in St. Patrick's Day in Dublin. And he lost his title on what the sports writers called a questionable decision.
Yes.
And so you have to know what forum you're talking about.
Right.
I saw Shelby Steele on with him, and I said, you know, if Jesse Jackson and Shelby Steele each had to present a 2-hour lecture to an audience with an average IQ of 120, Shelby would wipe him out. But if they had 5 seconds each on Donahue, it would be Jesse Jackson all the way.
Right.
So everything depends upon the forum.
Is Jesse Jackson good for African Americans or not?
He's not. Good for himself.
Good for himself.
And that's true of most ethnic leaders in most groups, in most countries, in most periods of history. That what will serve his interest is to keep people paranoid, dependent upon him, dependent upon government. What will serve their interest is typically just the opposite.
That's pretty interesting. So you're saying,
yeah, that's the damn truth right there. I mean, those are called the race baiters.
Yep.
And they get rich. They become enriched. You know, you think about Jesse Jackson and you know, so many Al Sharpton. You know, who's the latest?
They found that money.
Yeah. I think a lot of your race baiters are simply news heads now, like people on CNN or MSNBC, people like that. I don't see a whole lot of
like you said, they want to keep you paranoid. Like they thrive on fear. They want to keep you paranoid at all times, so you can continuously feed into it. Every day, it's something new. It got to the point where I didn't even want to look at my phone, because there was just constantly shit coming in, one thing after another. Like people really thrive on fear, like straight up. And they're just making their pockets fatter and fatter and fatter.
Well, over the last few years, I've seen such a big increase, and they say that Democrats are losing the black vote and the minority vote in general. And it seems like there's so many podcasts of, African Americans and people like that have taken the red pill, so to speak, and are speaking out and moving in that direction. Yeah. So I bet that's not good for business when it comes to people like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson.
Right. We're all coons now.
Yeah. Bunch of Uncle Toms.
Yeah.
Saying that the leaders, whatever group, wants the people to be poor and dependent on them as opposed to dependent on themselves.
Oh, absolutely. And you see this in the greatest cynicism in the academic world, where in many places, black organizations on campus have a say on who gets admitted. And they have turned down blacks with excellent credentials, both as students and as faculty members, for that very reason.
Who are the mascots of the anointed? You talk about the mascots of the anointed.
They're people whom they choose to back and whose rights are supposed to override other people's rights. The homeless are a classic example. I'm appalled when I see people out there in the street giving money to the home. I mean, able-bodied men. I mean, one of the classic pictures to me, it was in San Francisco, when there was this able-bodied white man out in the street begging, and there's this black lady coming along there, very modestly dressed, like she didn't have, but she's stopping to open her purse to give him some money, I thought, good heavens, have we really come to this? And we've been brainwashed by the anointed into thinking this is what we ought to do.
What do you say to guys that bum money off of you?
Not all of it can be repeated on the air, but the fact is they don't get any money.
They don't.
And people who complain now about all these people begging in the street, there's a simple answer: don't give them money, and they won't be in the street.
When you wrote this, what were you trying to accomplish with the book, and did you do it?
So, what did you think about that? Like
that one, I would definitely disagree with, because I give money to beggars and stuff like that because I think it's not that easy to say, okay, they're able-bodied, because there are a lot of other factors that play into why some people are homeless. For example, again, mental illness. Mental illness that's undetected, or they didn't have the health insurance to. There are some people who have been failed by the system. I have to really say, So with the way that healthcare is set up in America, coming from Germany, I don't really agree with that. And then a lot of people are just forgotten about or can't afford their medicine or whatever. And mental illness can make you, depression, for example. It can make you, what's the word? Shit, help me out, Scott.
Yeah, it can make you depressed.
It can paralyze you, like completely paralyze you to where, there's a lack of self-care and everything else. Mental illness is a big problem. And I think we're living in a society where one group of people that suffers from mental illness, they get the red carpet rolled out and they are exploited, and it's made to look like it's not mental illness, it's a trend. And then you have people who really do need help and they're not even fucking talked about. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know. America has its priorities fucking like
it is, man. It's like a case-by-case basis. And
it's kind of like a case-by-case basis. You can't really make a broad statement like that about homeless people in general. So I don't really agree with him on that.
Yeah. And, again, when you go into, if you're against the government, big government, helping and trying to solve all these poverty problems and stuff like that, if you really believe that, then it seems like you should be willing to step up and be the one to do it privately of your own accord. That's just me personally.
Yeah,
now, everyone has a right to do what they want with their money if they see it fit. But I think if you're going to feel sorry for people, you should it goes both ways. It's like the people that demand the government to step in and do stuff. What are you doing personally while you're talking about getting other people's money to help problems? Are you yourself, contributing? What are you doing? Or are you just asking the government to make everybody else do it?
I agree. Like the same people that talk the loudest, they wouldn't even give $1.
They
Let's
wouldn't
face
give a
it.
damn dollar. Right.
Here I am, a single mom with 3 kids, and I struggle. I'm trying to get myself out of the, I guess, projects. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the projects here. I'm in a small Texas town, and I do live in a subsidized housing complex that's based on my income and everything like that. But I am an entrepreneur. I started my own online business, and I work for myself. So I'm doing things. I'm proactive about trying to elevate myself out of that environment, and I don't have that much. You know what I mean? But I was still, if I'm going to preach that shit, I'm going to be about it. Let's just put
There
it
you
like
go.
that.
That's right.
I've
And you're
done
doing
my,
it. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You've got your own jewelry line. You've got things going on online for selling, and you work for yourself. So
yeah,
delivery business, all kinds of stuff that you're doing, and
yes,
that's how you take ownership of your situation and try to better yourself out of the situation. I think just by doing nothing and throwing your hands up and saying I'm a victim, it's not going to help you. It's not
no,
going to help.
it's not going to help you. It's just going to keep you right where you at. And I have dreams. I'm trying to, hopefully by next year, I want to like invest into a tiny home or something like that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, something reasonable, something that I know I can do, and I wouldn't be able to do that without capitalism. So I love it.
Right. A lot of people think that when you say you're a conservative and you're a capitalist, it means all you're interested in is being rich and fuck everyone else. And it's
No,
like, that's
absolutely
not what
not.
it's about. It's about helping yourself first so that you can help your loved ones, so that you can kind of expand on,
Yeah, it's about elevating yourself. You know what I mean? Like, and taking how would I say this? Taking advantage of the things that are available to me,
yeah.
things that I didn't know about for a long time, So like I
Well,
saw this segment with Jordan Peterson where he was talking to this African chick. Like, we have opportunities here in America that we don't have, that a lot of people don't have in a lot of other countries. Like, you can create a business online within 20 minutes. Whereas in Africa, you got to get through all the red tape and you got to do all this, and it takes you 2 years or 3 years to even, make something like that happen. So, I mean, we have the type of resources that a lot of countries don't have. And I'm not going to be sitting here stupidly saying, oh, I'm so oppressed. No, I'm going to see, what type of opportunities do I have available to me, educate myself about those things, and go for it. I'm a go-getter because
foster an environment of business that it's friendly. So we need a friendly business environment so that people can join in the entrepreneurship in this country and build themselves up, because in a lot of countries you don't have that, and because of that you have a lot of corruption. They have so much red tape that you'd rather pay a bribe to get through it than to actually wait 2-3 years to get your business off the ground, pay all those fees, and get turned down at the end of the day anyways.
Right. It just breeds,
that's how it happens in a lot of
it
countries.
just breeds criminal activity. And
It
I'm
does.
not the person that would say, oh yeah, I'm just about me and I'm going to be better than everybody else. No, people who are interested, and a lot of people support me, and I'm very grateful. I'm also one of those people that will show you the ropes. You know what I'm saying? I'll show you how to do it.
That is correct. That is correct.
That's what I'm
and
about.
Look, we're going to get through this video. We have a few comments from Quick Sticks Productions. He's got some comments out there. And we can kind of read through those at the end of this video. We can get through them, then we can address them. Maybe you can click on the link if you want and join us for a live conversation, or we can just sort of talk about these things with you. But we'll get through the video and we'll address them. Hopefully other people will also have questions and join us as well. So let's check this out and get through this.
Were you nailing liberals For 30 years of social policy, what were you trying to say?
I was trying to reveal the thinking behind that, the kinds of assumptions, the kind of world that exists inside their mind, and therefore why those assumptions are so dangerous in the long run. It's not just the policies mentioned in that.
They think they're better than everybody else.
Oh, absolutely. There's no question. And that's what makes them dangerous. Even all the policies that are mentioned there, 20 years from now, those policies may not be the policies we're concerned about, but that mindset will still be there. And what makes them tremendously dangerous is that facts that contradict what they believe are simply ignored or evaded.
Where does the press fall into this as the United Group? Are they part of the United?
Oh, absolutely. They're a major part of it, because one of the reasons that people don't get many of the facts that go against what's believed is that the press doesn't choose to publicize those facts.
Give me an example of something the press might not cover or cover well.
Oh, a few years ago, there was a story about prenatal care among blacks, that black women get less prenatal care than white women. Infant mortality rate is higher among blacks. They immediately assume that one causes the other. Now, one of the things I like to do is go back to the original source and find out what it said. I went back. On the very same page where it said that, the figures showed Mexican Americans get even less prenatal care than blacks, and they have a lower infant mortality rate than whites. So prenatal care and infant mortality rate have nothing to do with each other. If you break it down further, black women who have only a high school education, but who are married, their children have lower infant mortality rates than white women who have a college education, who are unwed mothers. So it's not race, it's not income, it's not education, it's lifestyle. When you live a certain way, there are consequences to that. The media doesn't want to accept that. Because if you say people's lifestyles have a lot to do with the outcome, then there's no room for the anointing.
Yep, I agree with that, because not only that, I actually researched that because I kept hearing it. And also there's another study that found that a lot of black women who are pregnant actually get murdered by the baby daddy, which also contributes to those rates, but it's not specified.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Well, we've got Quick Sticks Productions. It looks like he's in the backstage. You want to give him the floor? Maybe he's got some good questions, some good points. I could go ahead and bring him on into the stream.
Sure.
How you doing, Quick Sticks?
I'm doing fine.
Awesome. Yeah, he's got his camera out, so I guess it's just mainly audio. Is that how you want to keep it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I saw you have a few questions that you put up in the chat. Some good questions. Is there anything specific that you wanted to discuss first?
Well, I guess going off where that video just ended, what are these studies he's citing? Like, what is he referring to? Like, where did they come from?
You mean as far as economy or as far as the education?
Well, what he was referring to in regards to differences, I think it was in mortality rates between different races.
Oh, yes.
The source?
Yeah, I was wondering where it came from.
I would have to look that up. I can't tell you the exact source where he got it from.
So
Okay.
yeah, so Thomas Sowell, are you familiar with who Thomas Sowell is, by the way?
No.
Okay, so Thomas Sowell is a historian and he's a scholar. His whole point in his activism is to address racism, not through like the normal like government programs or reparations, for example. His way of addressing the inequities of racism that exists in America is to actually look at the root causes. And his whole thing is it's primarily based in culture. So he cites a lot of different sources that go way back, different authors, different historians. He's got plenty of books. The guy's got like so many books like on the market right now that you can look at, but he's pretty much not refuted on any of those type of things. I guess mainly what his point is that some of the inequity Black culture in America, specifically like in the ghettos and inner cities, is because they've adopted a subculture that goes back to slavery times, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually goes back even before then. It goes back to England. This is where certain vernaculars, certain customs, sex life, the way they deal with, confrontations, things like that. Black Americans have adopted those sort of behaviors from this subculture that was brought to the South. And so he's got a whole book on it. There's other books he'll cite, like there's a book called Cracker Culture, different books that you can look up.
And the problem, if you don't mind me interrupting,
Go
the
right.
problem with this subculture is that it's very self-destructive. The street life, the gangs, and all this kind of stuff. It kind of is very similar to what this cracker culture was. People not wanting to keep a job and not taking care of their kids and gambling and being very sexually promiscuous and things like that. Things that basically destroy the nuclear family structure, which is definitely something that conservatives focus on, is the nuclear family structure. And Black people adopted this culture, even though it died out over there, but then it remained over here. And Thomas Sowell, he kind of just points out how, sometimes to better yourself or to get better, you also sometimes have to look at what you're doing. What is it that you're doing, and why are you doing it? Are you doing it because that's what your mom taught you, that's what your dad taught you, and that's because that's what her mom taught her? Kind of like we're conditioned. And now it's to the point where if you say, okay, I don't really want to practice this lifestyle, that's really not me, and I feel like it's destructive, get ostracized. You're not Black enough. And I know this because I experienced that. You're trying to be white, or you're this or that, when in all reality, that's not even Black culture. So that's basically what that's about.
Okay. I mean, my first question to that would be, do you think people do these things for no reason? Like, do you think people just, take drugs or get involved in crime for no reason?
No, absolutely not, because I've been there.
Okay.
I've been there.
Okay. And what's your solution to getting out of that then?
Well, I don't know if I would have a straight up solution. We can definitely talk about
not an overall solution, but things that may help alleviate it.
So personally, I feel like I came from a broken home. I was in foster care. My mother was murdered when I was 9 years old. My dad was extremely, extremely abusive. He molested his own children and things like that. So, including me. But with that being said, most of my issues, I was a very young heroin addict, and I've been sober for 20 years. And I lost my brother to heroin. He, died from an overdose when he was 22. And I had a little sister. She also passed away. So, I went through some shit in my life, and it caused me to, I had it rough, and it's the fact that I didn't really have that strong nuclear family, that guidance from my parents. I didn't have any of that. So I kind of had to stumble through life trying to find my own way. And so, that I believe is a big, big issue in the hood. Okay. Let's face it. They're fatherless homes oftentimes, and then the mom has to do what she got to do to raise her kids, and possibly exposes her kids to this and that. It's just, I feel like the conservative viewpoint that we need strong nuclear families may not be a 100% solution. And I'm open to anybody else wanting to live how they want to live and have their own family structure, whatever they want, but I'm just saying, like, kids need that stability. And if that's missing as a child, what do you expect? How are they going to go through life? You know what I mean? So that could be a starting point, I would say.
Yeah. And I would agree. I would say that we're not up here trying to say that there's a simple solution. It's just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and then everything's going to be good tomorrow. But we have to understand that if we look at history in the United States post-slavery, because this stuff really does go back to slavery, if we're really honest with ourselves. This stuff is historical and it's generational and it's handed down. But if we look at the history, we'll see that there was a huge turnaround, according to the data, that, you know, the black family was very nuclear after slavery, years after slavery. Yeah, the Reconstruction did fail.
Can I just say that doesn't correlate with what actually happened in the decades? Like, for example, the peak of the nuclear family is supposed to be the 1950s, and they make it out like it was this some sort of golden age, which it wasn't. If you actually look at statistics, poverty was much higher. Poverty was actually lower in the 1970s than it was in the 50s. And that's when people were beginning to question the structure of the nuclear family. So I think this correlation between the nuclear family and poverty reduction, I think, is quite baseless, if I'm being honest.
What do you mean?
That's the
Hold on, let me clarify. What do you
Mhm.
mean about when people started to question the nuclear family structure? What do you mean by that exactly?
Well, like when more postmodernist and more basically like hippie culture and anti-war culture, like when that stuff was beginning to get when the traditions were beginning to get questioned.
Okay, so are you saying that the nuclear family structure is just something traditional that's not really necessary? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying it's. Well, I don't even think the nuclear family is traditional, because there was different family archetypes before the nuclear family. But I'm saying it's put on this pedestal, and when you actually break it down and when it was at its peak, there's not really any correlation with it reducing poverty.
Well, that's something we'd like to go into, because Thomas Sowell, for example, in his book talks about those very facts. Like when you look at the data, he's very explicit about that the poverty level for blacks, there and when I say poverty, I mean mainly the symptoms of poverty, like the crime, the dysfunction.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously black people were in poverty throughout the 20th century, right, because of post-slavery. But then we see a trajectory, is what he's pointing out, is that there's a trajectory of success among black people throughout those years. However, when the welfare state was initiated, more and more we start correlating like the lack of the nuclear family, which resulted in some of the things we're talking about, like the crime and the dysfunction and the mental illness and these different sort of things that we have. Now, there have been programs that were initiated.
What countries today don't have welfare?
Well, right there. Well, of course, especially in like Germany, European countries, we have welfare states and things like that. But the problem is, has it really saved the black community from the ills that it's facing? Has it really been the answer? And I would say,
or is it just a perpetual cycle?
It's not been the answer, but I think the evidence is overwhelming that the introduction of the welfare state drastically reduced poverty. Yes.
The
only countries today that don't have a welfare state are the ones that can't afford them.
Yeah, but I guess.
But have you ever been on welfare? Because I have.
I've been on welfare, yes.
Okay, so I mean, honestly, on welfare, you just don't come up. It's a perpetual cycle, because if you make a little bit too much, I understand, everything goes up and you can't get the benefits. But if it's like you get caught in a cycle,
in a rut,
because you don't make enough to really afford market rate rent for, like, for example, me and 3 kids, I would be paying easy $1,500 a month, but I pay about half of that. You know what I mean? So yes, it helps me, but at the same time, if I make $1 more, $20 more, I won't qualify for that. So I have to kind of keep myself under a certain income to be able to get the assistance. Because even if I make $20 more, I'm still not going to make enough to do it all on my own. You know what I mean?
And how does that lead you to think that throwing the whole system out is the answer?
That's not the end. That's not what I would
Well,
suggest.
I'm not saying throw the whole system out. I don't think I ever said that at all. I'm
No.
not saying that.
Yeah,
I
there's a difference between a lot of politicians who talk in those sort of absolutist kind of terms, and then conservative principles, which we're mainly focused on. Like,
Okay.
yeah, we do get a hand up from like me with unemployment benefits, things like that. I mean, obviously, there's social safety nets that kind of help. Not only do they help us, they kind of mark us as a civilized society, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I think that if we emphasize too much on, mediocrity and just surviving and getting by because that's all we can do, and we're not talking about flourishing.
I mean, I don't think we're doing that. I think there's actually a huge stigma of being on welfare. It's not a glorified thing.
Right. And it shouldn't be a glorified thing at all. And that's part of it, is that
Well, I think people shouldn't be stigmatized for it if they genuinely need to be on welfare.
Of course
Yeah,
not.
they don't,
Of
and I
course
don't
not.
agree with that. So
No one
I'm
agrees
not
with that here.
I'm not that type of conservative. I'm more on the, I guess, libertarian side of
Yeah,
conservatism.
we're mainly pushing for just the message of accountability and self-responsibility. And we understand, we need a hand up at times. We do need that. And
I
under
just
the
feel,
current
I
situation, that's
just feel
all
like
we have.
That's not really conservatism, like most ideologies would say that. Like,
it kind of does fall into conservatism still, because conservatism is a spectrum. You have like social conservatism that's more about the religious enforcement, and I'm not religious. I'm
Neither am I.
spiritual. So I mean, I have some conservative views, but I don't agree with everything conservatives say. I'm kind of an independent thinker. So when it comes to the whole welfare thing, since I have lived that, I feel like it's not designed for you to actually get out of it and be an owner of property or a home or anything like that. You're just kind of stuck in the cycle. And so that's what I feel needs to change when it comes to welfare. It should be.
I mean, I have the opposite opinion. I don't think we should be making welfare harder to get. I think we should be improving conditions in the workplace. I think that's what the problem is. Most people, I think, have it backward. We shouldn't be needing to cut welfare. We should be improving wages. We should be improving working conditions, and we should be improving the say of the worker in the workplace. This is why I don't get why a lot of conservatives are very anti-trade union.
If people had more of their money, if they could take home more of their money, then they could actually improve their situation. But if the taxes are so high for the business owners as well as the workers, then it seems that no one is able to actually pull themselves up out of that situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems that, looking at
they can't
bigger and bigger government is only going to tax people.
They can't pull themselves out of that situation if their taxes are going to public services.
Yeah, but who wants to be, again, who wants to focus on being, stuck on social services?
I'm not talking about social services. I'm talking about healthcare, education, the emergency services. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about those things. If you have a strong healthcare system, if you have strong transport, if you have a strong infrastructure to society and strong public services, you're going to have a population that's going to have less needs. Like See, when I heard in the United States you pay like $2,500 for an ambulance, I found that insane.
Yeah, but if you have more of your take home pay, then you can pretty much buy your own insurance. You don't need to be stuck on this mediocre government insurance.
Why do people in the UK pay a quarter of what the average American does on healthcare? We have a
Well, yeah,
national
it's
health
just
service,
different.
and what do you mean it's just different?
It's a different system, obviously. But
yeah, it's a system that is more efficient and works better than the American system.
Same
yes.
with Germany. It's a very efficient system. Different things.
Well, I mean, I can't
It's
really
almost like it's almost like health shouldn't be privatized.
You don't think health should be privatized? Don't you think private industry
because
makes better products and gives competition, which kind of helps research, development, and things of that nature?
Not necessarily, no. I actually think it has the opposite effect. If you actually put, for example, if you put pharmaceutical companies in competition with each other, they're incentivized to keep new finds and research to themselves and not to share that with the greater scientific community. So no, I don't think I think competition has its place, and I think the private sector has its place, but in health it's not. At best, it has a very limited role.
Well, if you go to the National Library of Medicine, I think I saw a recent study, relatively recent, 2015, and they kind of addressed that particular issue, the idea of competition in healthcare to promote, better healthcare overall. And the conclusion was that competition does increase the number of services provided and billed, and therefore,
where was this study done? Where was this study done in what country?
Let me go online and look. It's very easy.
I'm kind of on your side.
You can look at competition among health. Here it is.
Just so you know.
If you go to the ncbi.nlm.nih.gov, if you just look under the heading competition among healthcare providers, helpful or harmful, and you'll get the results of that.
I know, but what country is this? The United States?
The US,
yeah. I mean, it's easy to say you're getting better quality healthcare when I think just now, what is it, like half of your population doesn't have healthcare at all. In the UK, we're aware that there are shortcomings with our NHS. Our waiting times are really bad, etc. But
that's a choice situation. That's the problem with the far left. They can't imagine that people actually make
that's not
choices.
a far left position to be in favor of universal health care.
No, well, it definitely is. I mean,
no, it's not. So you're saying most of Western Europe is far left?
I would, in that respect, of course.
Okay, that's ridiculous.
When you're looking at
nearly every single developed country in the world has universal health care.
I understand. What I'm trying to tell you is, if you look at the data, if you look at what the studies actually indicate, is that free market economy and competition is better for healthcare. It's better for people. Now, people might not choose to buy insurance because they want to buy other things, but that's people have a choice. People are making choices. But if you were to have a system that relied on competition in a free market, the data indicates that the healthcare system is better.
Because about half your population don't have healthcare.
Yeah, but that's exactly because we're growing and growing.
So you think half your population is a sign of a thriving society? I think that's a sign of a failed society, and I think that's a standard that I would expect from a developing country, not from a developed first world country.
Well, I think that, with most Americans that work and most Americans that are either not working and under, welfare system or something like that, they're covered with their health care. Some people don't want to be covered in health care because they work because they're making just enough money to make it. Part of the problem is because people are taxed, choices that people make. I mean, let's face it, a lot of Americans, unfortunately, and I'll just say it, a lot of Americans are just stupid when it comes to making financial.
I don't really agree with that one. I mean, I'm on quick stick side with that because I mean, I grew up in Germany, so I had free healthcare from birth, and I didn't understand that either. I mean, I went to the ER not too long ago, and literally all that was done. He looked in my mouth and told me I had a bad tooth. So, and then I got like an $800 bill for that, and I'm like, what the fuck, So I mean, healthcare, I feel, could be definitely improved. I don't understand the logistics and all that, so I'm not even going to pretend that I do or how that works. But I don't understand that either, why it's so hard to have access to any kind of medical care. So what I do, I go to like a nonprofit clinic and I kind of pay out of pocket based on a sliding scale and things like that. So I can say we do have programs here that can assist you in getting something done. But again, you need help with it when you don't make, I mean, I made $26 an hour and I was a YDC. I worked at a jail.
Yep.
And the money that came out just for healthcare was practically half my check, so it's.
No, I get it. That's the whole thing. Like, I lived in Germany, and when I had my daughter, it didn't cost us anything, and it was great. We had a midwife, all this stuff. Germany is a smaller country. It's not the same.
It's not a massively smaller nation. It's still got about 89 million people in it. That's not.
Yeah, but I mean, compared to America, it's small.
In ratio to its population density, it's not small, no.
Yeah, but it's a totally different culture, totally different system, though. That's the situation that we have in America, and especially and again, that depends on what people want.
Yeah, we didn't always. No, but I'm just gonna say we didn't always have a welfare. We didn't always have a welfare state in Britain. We didn't always have universal healthcare in Britain. It was like the US. You were expected to pay for it, but our social attitudes, not just our legal, not just our system changed, our social attitudes changed as well. And
So why do people from countries like Canada, some places in Europe, come to America to get certain procedures done?
I think that's just by the sheer wealth of the United States, and
right. Yeah. So they get. You would agree that people kind of get like premier sort of health services here. It's expensive. I'm not disagreeing with you that, but
that's kind of all I'm saying. I wouldn't mind investing in my own health, obviously.
Yeah, but I think you're conflating medical science with healthcare, though.
And but another point that
I didn't. So I'm not in favor of like nationalizing like medical research across the board. I have no problem with there being private medical research to a certain degree. What I have a problem with is having not having a public option for healthcare.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I understand that completely. But I guess what I'm saying is, part of what makes, the U.S. such a magnet for, business, health, when people want certain premier health care or stuff like that, is because we live in a very highly competitive nation. Economically, the markets, things of that nature, that's what drives us to be, the number one country in the world. I guess what our overall message is that if you are in a situation where you're sort of, stuck and you're suffering, you're in poverty, you have to look in the mirror, man, and make choices in your life. Like, some of this healthcare stuff we're talking about, is a matter of choosing the right food, choosing the right diet, exercise, things like that, things we can do to avoid those sort of problems to begin with, so that we don't have to pay all this kind of money for procedures and drugs and things of that nature. Yeah, there's a lot of problems. I admit that. But I'm just saying that, what our whole goal is just to kind of empower each other to say, look, we have the ability to make choices and avoid a lot of this stuff and not fall for the messaging out there, which is to say you're a victim, you can't do anything, and you need bigger government, or you need these things. Like, that's not necessarily.
I mean, I don't know if that's a major message that's being pumped out.
It's what everybody says, but believe me and Sophia on social media all the time, and anytime we talk about personal responsibility and accountability, it turns into, oh, you're just a bigot hiding behind the facts. Oh, you're just a bigot hiding behind this, or oh, you're just
in what regards?
Well, I agree with
in regard to anything, really.
I agree with that the medical health insurance definitely needs improvement, because you got one thing I don't agree with in this country is that you got big pharma pushing all these medications, but not really addressing the problems. We're just like masking the symptoms. And it is a highly competitive country, and everything is about profit. So, I mean, our healthcare system definitely could use improvement, but at the same time, I will say this: we do have safety nets in this country, contrary to popular belief. There are things that you can do, to get help if you need it. It's just different from like in Germany, where you're born with free healthcare. But like I said, I mean, I get assistance, and there are programs that we have that are offered to individuals, but overall, I mean, I see his point, I see Quick Sticks' point. I hear your points. So I'm kind of like in the middle of it. It's not perfect. It definitely needs improvement. So that's where I'm at with it.
I just wanted to go back to the point you were saying about the United States being successful because it's competitive. I mean, I think that's only half true. I think you also have to take into regards the United States is one of the most resource-rich countries in the world, and it doesn't even hold up to scrutiny really because, for example, China has far more government oversight. It's far more in line with a lot of mixed economies across the world, and it's on the path to potentially overtaking the United States economically. So I think this idea that you can just, like the free market is the be-all and end-all solution to all things is wrong.
But remember, China, once they implemented capitalism and competition, along with other Asian countries, that's when they really started to flourish.
Yeah, I agree, but they also didn't stop massive government oversight and government ownership of the economy. It doesn't prove that laissez-faire economics works to its purest degree. It proves that a mixed economy works.
Yeah, it's not perfect. I agree with you. I mean, let me put it to you this way. Like, I have family members that are Africans. They came from Kenya. And they're all business owners, people that are highly educated. Why did they leave their country? And they'll tell you, we left the country because it's so hard to actually get a business going, to actually make our businesses flourish. We come to America, it's so easy. Now these people are highly educated or highly successful in their businesses, and they're, the kids like, my wife's cousins and people like that are educated now and doing really well on their own businesses, things like that. Those things are not possible in the country they came from because, there's so much red tape and regulation on getting anything done. And this is where it breeds corruption, because in order to get anything done, you have to bribe this person, bribe that person to get things through. and get things going. And so it just breeds this situation as an entire country. And when they came to America, so this is, and they've been to Europe, like my uncle, Uncle Mwangi, he's been to Europe trying to start businesses. He says, but in America is the easiest place to actually get business going. It's the easiest place that I've found to actually get things accomplished, just because of the environment, the business environment here. It's so easy to become an entrepreneur and get things going. And, he personally doesn't understand, like, he's a black man, people judge him because he's black. On top of it, he has a funny accent because he's from Africa. Yet this man is very successful. And so this person doesn't understand, well, what's the problem with the Black Americans? Why are they always stuck in these situations? And what I'm trying to say is that it's just like Thomas Sowell says, it's cultural and it's generational, and it's hard to break out of that. And it's not so easy when you grow up being molested as a child and grow up with all these things that mentally fuck you up. It's not that easy.
Can I ask, did he come to the United States with like a higher education?
Yes, most Africans are very highly educated to begin with. That's true.
Well, I mean, I don't know if that's true. What happens is the most highly educated of that society immigrate there. The average person from China or India or I don't know, Ghana or wherever, they're not educated to this higher level. They're more on par with the average Joe in the West. You're getting a lot of these countries are getting the best and brightest of these populations. That's one of the reasons why these countries are so poor, is because they have a brain drain from their country. They have a flight of skilled workers leaving their country. That's one of the major problems.
Well, I know in Kenya, like in my family could tell you, you see people out there begging, to do work in the street, running around, hustling, trying to get things done, trying to scrape for whatever. These same people have degrees. These people are highly educated as scientists, doctors. They just don't have the opportunity to actually use that education. So they're out there in the street in the hot sun, chasing cars down to get little scraps here and there. That's the environment that it's like in many countries. Yeah. And so these sort of people come to America highly motivated because they understand. People here in America, we tend to be very spoiled, and we tend to take things for granted. Like, we have so much going for us, we forget that we have so much.
I was actually just looking at statistics there. Only about 500,000 Kenyans have a university education. Out of a population of 52 million.
That may be true, but I guarantee you that.
This isn't to say,
and it doesn't matter where you're from, but anybody from anywhere that comes from a strong culture, a strong family that has a very good foundation, strong foundation, family wise, with support, will do a lot better in life, period, in America than if they didn't. That's just kind of a common sense thing. And so my only point is to say that, let's try to look in the mirror. Let's try to make better decisions for ourselves, and let's try to change the curse around. It's not that easy. I'm not saying it's perfect, it's easy or anything like that. I'm just saying that sort of mentality goes a lot farther than some victim mentality.
I mean, I agree, but I think sorry.
I think that is something. There's just certain things that we're not focusing on as Americans too. I feel like mental illness is a problem. I don't know if anybody knows this channel. It's called what is it called? With Mark Leda, White Underbelly or something like that. Has anybody ever heard of it?
The name sounds familiar, but not the show.
Anyway, Soft White Underbelly. He interviews people that he just finds on the street, and a lot of them are drug addicts, prostitutes, whatever. Make a long story short, I've watched probably 200 of his videos, okay, because I watch it a lot. And one thing that they all have in common is they had a broken home, they suffered abuse, a lot of times sexual abuse. That's like probably 80% of the time, if not more. There's some type of sexual abuse, and usually in the family, um, by a relative or whatever. And so, yeah, we are not focused enough on how trauma causes a person's reality,
Mm-hmm.
because it's working if it's unaddressed.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing in the Black community, we're taught, oh, just keep pushing. We don't even talk about mental illness. That's like a
Mm-hmm.
taboo. So if you don't address that trauma, it's going to keep creating your reality. And so I think that in the Black community, especially, we need to focus on healing these traumas, addressing these traumas. And that's kind of where I like to tackle things at, because that's what I had to do. I had a lot of trauma that I had to face. I had to work through it. I had to address it, and come to terms with it so I can move ahead. And so let's say we got generational trauma from slavery. If we don't address that, it's going to continue to go on and on and on and on and on. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a lot of stuff. We can't just say one solution
And
is
the
going to
great thing about the internet
I
is
mean,
that everyone has access to information on the internet, and so we try to educate people, or at least motivate people on an individual level to kind of move in
right.
that direction. You know what I mean?
I mean, the issue I have, which I have with conservatives, is they always conflate social aid to just welfare, which is not the only thing that social. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of conservatives, well, I'm speaking from my experience in the UK here. They cut. People can't climb a ladder if you're going to knock the steps down.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the conservatives in our country are doing. They're shutting down
Wow.
libraries. They're shutting down community centres. They're defunding education.
Mm.
Like, if you want people to get out of poverty, you have to give them options to get out of it. Like having a community centre, like having for example, like a boxing club or something. That's that's a stepping stone out of poverty. It's something positive in their lives. But the Conservatives have taken that away, and all they have left is to wallow in their own misery because they can't see a light at the end of the tunnel because those stepping stones have been taken away.
Right, right, and I disagree with that. Like, I see a lot of republic, like in this country, anyways. There's Republicans who call themselves conservatives, and they are people that just want to destroy, everything. Like and think that the nation is going to thrive if you just take everyone off of welfare and things like that. It's not that simple. It doesn't work that way. I think what I'm really trying to do here is just spread mainly a message of positive accountability and responsibility for oneself, and just give someone an alternative view that says you can be empowered. You can feel like you can turn your life around. And in this country, we've kind of seen a shift a little bit with the Black community to be more open to conservative values. I don't mean Republican values. I don't mean that. I mean conservative values, of depending on the government less, and trying to look in the mirror more and see what you can do to really pull yourself up. I'm not saying that government programs out there are no good and they're bad and they need to be shut down or whatever. Eventually, we hope that we don't ever need a government program for people. Obviously, that's the ideal, but that's just not realistic right now. I think what we need is just a little bit of both. But we need that message soundly, that you have to take ownership of your life. You have to kind of be competitive. It's kind of like what Thomas Sowell said in this video. It's not that I'm being a hard ass. It's just that life is fucking hard, man.
Yeah,
And we're just
that's
trying
true.
to get people acquainted with that shit.
That's true. I agree with that. You have to. That's just reality. I mean, I'm sorry, it is.
Yeah, but what is there to pull themselves out of they have have nothing to pull themselves out of that hole.
Well, I mean, I don't know how it is in your country. Where are you at, in England?
Scotland.
Scotland? Okay, sorry, I messed up the I thought it was an English accent, but anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like he said, we have programs in America. Like in
I
my
mean,
town.
I'm not even talking about programs though. I'm just talking about the government funding community services and funding even like local businesses and local groups. That's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for these massive government
Like a
control.
bridge, like
Yeah,
some
that's
type of
what. Yeah,
bridge.
well, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. Like, if well, for example, say there's a karate club in your that's about to shut down. I would hope that my local council would have the funds to go and save that karate class, so those kids, like,
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
I have
I
no
agree with
problem
don't
that.
with stuff like that.
lose
That's
out on it.
exactly what I'm talking about. Things that the government can do, programs like that, I'm not opposed of. Those make good bridges into self-reliance because they're programs that make sense.
Unfortunately, the conservatives in my country are opposed to that because they've cut council spending, they've cut public spending on these things, and what we're seeing is more people falling into the trap of poverty and welfare. They do all this in the name of getting people out of welfare, but it's having the opposite effect.
Well, over here, I'm kind of seeing the opposite, especially what happened with when the pandemic started. A lot of small businesses went out of business, lost their business, like straight up, just in my little town, And I feel like the policies under Biden have definitely targeted individualism and individual businesses. I mean, families that had a business for the last 50 years had to go out of business, and in my community, we have things like the Boys and Girls Club. We have like the YMCA where you can go swimming or get swimming lessons, and it's a really cheap price. It's not expensive. It's created so that low income people can afford it, and stuff like that. So we have all that kind of stuff in place. But what's really bad right now is that even me, I work for myself. My business took such a hit that I didn't know what I was gonna do, and I was like, now I'm gonna have to run my ass back out here to a regular 9 to 5 that's paying me minimum wage, and I was doing fucking good, So I feel like these democratic policies targeting small businesses is just not. I think entrepreneurship is really a good thing.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
not saying,
I think it is a good thing.
I'm not saying it's the only thing that we should have, but it should be available. We should have it. I mean, that's what's helping me. And who are they to say, no, stay your ass in the hood. No, keep getting a check. No, keep doing this. You know what I mean? I don't want to. I don't want to go to a job for $8 an hour. I don't want to do that
Yeah.
shit no more. I've done that long enough. I
Yeah.
make more working for myself, and I created, and I'm proud of myself. And as humans, I feel like innately we have that within ourselves, that we're not depressed when we're creating things. It makes us feel good about ourselves. And so we should have the opportunity to do those things. So that's all I'm saying. You know what I mean? At the same time, we should have programs and stuff like that for people who really need the help. It shouldn't be to the point where anybody can just do it, because I mean, I live in the hood and I see people that have like 6, 7 kids, and every last one of their kids, they know what doctor to go to get their kid diagnosed with this and diagnosed with that. And now this woman is collecting 6, 7 checks for her children. And really there's shit wrong with them. You're discipling your own children and you're teaching them to be caught in that same fucking cycle. And then when they get older, they're relying on a fucking check. And then a lot of times these kids get put on meds, like so-called ADHD medicine. Every child in the hood is diagnosed with ADHD. Like, what the fuck? So what happens, especially out here in Texas, these kids get put on ADHD meds. At 18, they get cut the fuck off. And then, excuse my language, I'm very passionate about this stuff because I've been just seeing it too many years and it pisses me off. Anyway, these kids get cut off at the age of 18, and then guess what they do? They go in the street and they get street drugs, they get methamphetamines, and now they're meth heads. You know what I'm saying? Like, we shouldn't be doing that to children. They're not ADHD. It's just these teachers have become lazy. They sit in the fucking classroom and they want these kids to sit there all day without moving, you know, and all they're doing really is indoctrinating them. They're not really teaching them shit. They don't give them recess, anything, you know what I'm saying? And so this kid's supposed to, at 6 years old, sit there all day and not move. You know, they're going to get out of their chair. They're going to act up because the teachers are not really engaged with the students anymore. And these kids have all these behavioral issues because they're sitting there. And then it's easier to say, oh, he got ADHD, put him on meds because, you know, I need him to sit still all day. And then these mothers are basically forced to do it because they'll get kicked out of fucking school. I went through that with my own son. And my son is 12 now, and I refuse to put him on ADHD medicine. You know, instead I took him out there and taught him how to swim, did this and did that with him, you know, what's the word? You know, make him burn up his energy. You know what I'm saying? Like shit like that. You know, we have to be engaged with children, and they're not doing that no more. You know, you can't just put everybody on fucking meds.
Well, yeah, I was gonna. Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say. I mean, I agree to that to a certain extent. I think, especially with doctors, I don't know what it's like in America, but they've just been overwhelmed with the amount of patients, especially after COVID. And I think they're trying to find easy solutions, and the easiest thing they can do with their patients is throw pills at them and then send them on their way. And it's no use. But I think the problem with that is it's not getting adequate funding and it's not getting adequate support. I think if you don't have strong public sector institutions in your local community, then everything's going to unravel from there. Like, for example, see in Finland, a teacher's held in the same regard as a doctor or a lawyer, and they get paid, I believe, about the same as a doctor and a lawyer. They value their teachers so much there, and they give them the support they need. I think we have to have similar attitudes across the board. I don't know about in the US, but in
you're saying that the teachers are underpaid and not, you know, that's what you're saying, that they're underpaid?
I'm saying, no, I'm saying they should potentially get paid more, but the caveat is in the Finland, they have very, very high expectations for teachers. Like as I said, they hold them at the same regard as doctors and lawyers. So they have to have a thorough education, far more thorough than a lot of other Western countries. And as a result of that value of education in Finland, they have one of the leading education systems in the world just now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I would agree.
Teachers are held to a very high standard.
Yeah, they're held to an extremely high standard in Finland.
And I want to say that too, that Europe, because I've lived in Europe for a number of years, and America isn't the only place that does things great. You know, there's different ways of doing things. You know, there's hybrid economies. There's, you know, different forms of government that do things great. Like I thought Germany was, when I lived in Germany, I thought they ran that country very well, and the people were very happy and very healthy.
That's changing too now, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of issues and problems, just like in America. And America is supposed to be like this big capitalistic country, greatest nation in the world, whatever. But, you know, we have our share of problems too. And I guess, you know, we deal with things the best way we can in our environment. And so, but I would just to say that to quick sticks is that I for one, am not going to sit here and berate like European countries that they're bad countries or whatever. I think that though I would make the observation, like say a Norwegian country are very friendly, business friendly, and they've prospered because of that.
Yeah, but they're business friendly, but they also have some of the strongest trade unions in Europe.
Yep, I understand. They definitely do. They definitely do.
that I would actually be in favor of lower corporate tax and lower business tax, but the trade-off for that is we need to have strong trade unions, in my opinion.
Mm.
And in America, you have states that have laws that in the UK as well, we have laws that specifically attack trade unions and make it nearly impossible for a workplace to unionize, which I don't think is fair. If you believe in the free market, if you believe in, a freedom of association and believe that somebody should be able to have their own business, you should equally believe that workers should be able to collectively bargain, come together voluntarily, and fight for their rights as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's it's just kind of silly to think that there should be no referee when there's a game like a market, a free market. There has to be a referee, and I understand that. But I would agree with you on that. Pretty much. I think pretty much I agree with you on that. That there has to be. That's what the government's. There would be no free market as we have it if there was no government in place. I mean, that's the bottom line. So I understand that.
I mean, I'm surprised you're in favor of it because that's quite a left-wing position.
Yes, it is a left-wing position.
Well, again, I mean, we have conservative views, but we don't agree with everything that conservatives say.
Okay.
And like I said, I am more on the libertarian side of it. Yeah. But at the same time, I have a lot of conservative views too. So, most people are going to perceive me as a straight up conservative, but I'm really, I'm kind of in the middle, Yeah,
I think that if we're really honest, we're not going to always agree with any one particular side 100%. I mean, that's the thing about being an individual is you're going to have, and part of that could be my own lack of education about certain things. I don't know any better. And it's a constant growing process.
We're not trying to preach.
I identify as a social democrat. I do believe in a strong welfare state and strong social services, social programs for a community. But at the same time, I also believe in the free market, and I do believe in there shouldn't be too much regulation, and the trade-off on that is though you also have to be pro-worker and you have to give trade unions the right to fight for a fair pay for their workers and a good living standard.
The free market sort of bears that out too, though. I mean, if you've got, this is the whole idea of competition. If there's 4 companies here in this town, say I'm in a real small town, for example, there's only like 4 or 5 companies, and 4 of them are only paying their workers $5 an hour for a particular job, but this company over here is willing to pay 6 or 7 an hour for that same job. Obviously, they're going to get more work, to get more quality work, and they're going to blow up. I mean, that's how it works. The incentive sort of is what drives the free market, that sort of incentive.
The problem is a lot of areas of the economy are not inherently competitive, and you get monopolies forming. And
you do. You can get monopolies, but again, I think that the more competition you have out there, that's what breaks up these monopolies, right?
Well, I think that depends on the industry. Like, for example, the railways in the UK are a massive monopoly, and the reason for that is not because of government intervention or anything. It's because railways are an inherently uncompetitive industry. You can't really expand it. You've got to stick to very rigid rules because it's a railway.
Yes, exactly. Like I used to work for as a contractor for Amtrak. It was very heavily unionized, and I would have to bid. I'd have to make sure that workers could bid to get jobs that I had as a contractor in order to work on train cars and things like that, like carpenters, electricians, and things like that. And everybody worked for Amtrak. There was probably one other train company called Metrolink that was their number one competition. That was it. But then we had Elon Musk, who back then, who was a new entrepreneur in California, who was trying to set up some train companies and things like that. But it was so heavily regulated that he just thought, this is just not the space for me to get into.
But see, the thing is, it's not a case of government regulation. It would be self-regulating, because there's only so much you can do with trains.
Yeah, because they take up so much of the space and things like that. I understand that too. Things are different, but I think from what I read back then, I'd have to go revisit it. Elon Musk kind of pulled out of it because it was just too hard to. Now he had underground tunnels as a solution to that, of what you're talking about. Like,
I mean, I think Elon Musk is an extremely impractical man in a lot of things, but that's my opinion.
Yeah,
I don't like that
totally
either.
different.
Really. But I had a question for you, Quick Sticks.
Yeah.
How do you feel about open borders?
I mean, I think immigration overall is a net positive for a nation. I think it's overplayed how much of a problem it is. Like, for example, in the UK, they were trying to make the argument, immigration pushes down economic growth, which is completely wrong. If you actually look at statistics, economic growth went up as immigration went up in the UK.
Okay, so fair enough. But what about illegal immigration? Do you think it should be regulated?
Yeah, yes, yeah, of course. Because if you don't regulate it,
Right, but
it's not just gonna be a problem for the country. It's also going to be a problem for the illegals themselves, because it could be exploited for like human trafficking and other crimes.
Yep.
Right. So that's one big issue I would say we have is we get a lot of illegals here.
I mean, I think it would be more of an argument you need to loosen up your citizenship, because from what I understand, the United States has quite high standards to become a legal immigrant or a citizen.
I don't think so, to be honest. I don't know though, because it was easy for me.
I was about to ask you, I think I may know what you're talking about, but explain a little bit, Quick Sticks. What do you think an example of that would be?
Well, I think it doesn't. I mean, I'm not an expert on the American immigration system, but from what I understand, don't they have to isn't there a waiting period of 5 years or something to immigrate to the United States?
So I don't think there's a waiting period necessarily. You just have to pay a certain fees. Now those fees are expensive. My wife was from Kenya, like I said before, and she was actually a member of the EU, the European Union. So when she came over, she had to go through the paperwork and everything like that, but she got over relatively quick, and I think she became a citizen in within 2 years. I think it was 2 years she was an American citizen.
It's 6 to 33 months, y'all. Can y'all hear me still?
Yep. Can hear you, yeah.
6 to 33 months.
As I say, I'm not an expert on American immigration, so I can't really comment hugely on it. But I think a lot of arbitrary things, like cultural things, like quizzes, I don't think are necessary. My only criteria for somebody to immigrate to Britain, for example, is they pay their taxes, obey the law, and contribute to the economy. That's the only three things I want them to do.
Yeah, in America, it's the same way. I think I know what you mean, though. Like, I remember there was like a test that my wife had to take, and it was a test on like just like some of the Constitution and things like that. I don't think that was a big deal. I mean, she aced it like the first time, so it's not hard at all. But
yeah, and then there's something like how do you plan on contributing to the country? What type of
those, but
stuff like that.
The one thing I would say is it's very expensive. I think it is kind of expensive, like for all the fees to get the paperwork done. That did kind of run up, and that could be changed. I think that'd make it easier for folks to immigrate. Again, that's government bureaucracy at work. But
I mean, as I said, it's more my experiences from the UK. Like, a lot of immigrants, I think, unfairly as well, get a reputation of being lazy here. But what people don't realize is it's not that they're not working. Like, for example, there's a lot of Polish immigrants in Britain. It's not that they're lazy. It's because most Polish immigrants are doing night shifts. They're not working during the day. So when they see them going about, they think, oh, they're on welfare. They're not contributing. It's not the case. They're doing the work that people aren't willing to do at night time.
Exactly. The funny thing here.
I don't think that's really what it is here so much. It's
I was about to say it's a stigma. It's totally opposite.
Yeah, what can be a problem here is like when too many illegals come over here. A lot of companies can underpay them because I mean, who are they going to say something to? They're working undocumented, so that leaves a lot of Americans on the wayside because it's like, okay, you're going to hire this person because they don't have any papers and you can underpay them, and so now I'm not being hired, even though I'm qualified and I'm an American. Another thing that happens is, I used to do a lot of customer service and sales and things like that. And that kind of went downhill for me because they started requiring Spanish speakers, so it's like, why as an American do I have to speak Spanish to be hired in my own country as an American? And so a lot of Hispanics would get the job because they're, they speak Spanish. And so things like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I'm in favor of increased unionization in the workplace, because in a way it would become a self-regulating system, because, you can't join a trade union if you can't prove that you're, like a legal resident within that country. Because a lot of these places aren't unionized, or, they're very informal. There's no like formal system of like
that makes sense.
We just need to keep a balance on that is my only point there, because like you mentioned, kind of the same principle. Like if you make things over regulated, it kind of breeds corruption.
Right, you don't want to over-regulate it, but at the same time, you do have to regulate.
This isn't even government regulation. This is just a trade union existing in a company. It's not even a comment on the extent or the size of the trade union. It's just it exists. Like when you join the company, you can register in the trade union, but you can only register if you're a legal resident. And then, like if you can't register, that's going to put alarm bells off.
Yeah.
And then it's going to self-regulate the immigration system. And it might encourage people more to come through the legal routes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
Hey, guys, I have to jump off here. We've been at it for 2 hours, and I got to go, of course, take care of some stuff.
Mr. Big Stick, it was nice to meet you.
Yeah, really nice for you to call in, man. Thank you so much for having this conversation and giving us things to think about and really consider. And please, again, watch the show, call in again at some point. And I really enjoy talking to you. I'm glad it's been so intellectual and not, how these things usually go,
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Appreciate that a
No
lot.
problem.
Man.
I'm gonna head off now because it's getting late here.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll see you later.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.
All right. Cool, man.
All
That
right,
was a
Scott,
great
I'm leaving you
combo.
now. I got to go. What?
Yep, I got to roll. But thanks, guys, for joining us. For the folks that were out there watching the show, really appreciate it. We'll be back next week and we'll do it again. And yeah, call in. We'll take your questions, all of that, and look forward to next
And
time.
also, if you guys have any type of topics that you want us to address, you can let us know. Y'all can send
Keep
me
it
a
coming.
message or send Scott a message. You know what, if there's anything y'all want to talk about in particular.
Yeah, put the comments in the comment section and we'll address it. And okay, Sophia, until next time, we will see you on the next hump day.
All right, have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye.